Disney's Galactic Starcruiser will be the next Firefest. Change my mind. I'm wearing my Sith regalia because inevitably I'm a Sith. I just thought I'd dress the part as a larper and walk through this video. Sith don't have flyaways. Get it together. Well, at least Firefest tried to be over the top. This is kind of settling like a grandpa in an old recliner. Hello, welcome to Not for Lack of Trying. So I'm going to be recording on this blue snowball, which is terrible and will definitely be picking up the baby's sound machine in the other room. I'm just an idiot with a recorder trying to make a video during nap time. Thank you for hanging out with me today. So I'm an event planner, and I thought there's a lot of hate going on online with the Galactic Starcruiser, and kind of for good reason. So I thought I would try to fix it and see if this experience would be the $6,000 experience that people would actually be willing to pay for that kind of price tag. I'm a nerd culture enthusiast, I'm a LARPer, and I just wanted to give something that would justify the price tag. I'm not looking down to be rude. I have a lot of notes here, and I want to make sure that I hit on all my points because I put a lot of work into this. First, we're going to try to fix the following: the aesthetic, a living, breathing world, food, guest experience, the rooms, and finally, I just kind of put together like a new itinerary that would hopefully be something that people would enjoy a little bit more than kind of feeling rushed and propelled into the next event, into the next event, into the next event. It kind of allows people to just exist in that world that you're paying money to be in. So first, the kind of set, location, and aesthetic. So option A is to kind of keep the main Starcruiser, but take the Star Trek elements out. It needs to bend more towards that 70s futurism. Even if it looks clean, it can be more like that Millennium Falcon when it still belonged to Lando. I think the main issue, honestly, is just a lack of texture. Everything is kind of too smooth, too rounded. Even like the prison ship in the Mandalorian episode looked better because it had that texture and more Star Wars angled elements. Even with the Starcruiser having the necessary wide corridors for people and ADA accessibility and whatnot, it just needs to have more texture, as well as like interactive moments. There just doesn't seem to be enough of just really tiny details to be discovered and appreciated. There needs to be lights with panels and boxes and levers and cubbies where a droid's feet are sticking out, and a control panel where there's someone bent over upside down trying to fix it. Like, for Pete's sake, like the Star Trek Academy LARP back in like the 2000s had a hologram to, greet visitors upon arrival. It gave them an orientation about the gadgets they'd be seeing and using. They had their personnel file about the progression through the Starfleet Academy. And they had like little tests and challenges to see where you'd be classified, whether it's like science division, med bay, engineering, whatever. Maybe we could kind of reskin that to be more Star Wars, where, people can kind of choose, do you want to be a Sith like me? Do you want to be a bounty hunter, part of the Republic Senate? Do you want to be part of the old Jedi Order? Maybe you can kind of choose those things upon arrival, and you get like a little pin or something and you put it on your lapel and it identifies you and your choice. And that way cast, when they interact with you, can kind of understand who you are and can interact with you accordingly. I'm just saying, like, if we can get a Tupac hologram at Coachella, we can get a hologram to greet people upon arrival. The Voxon VX1 in each room would be absolutely sick. And it's not terribly complicated. You can kind of set it and forget it as a part of world building. Option B, which is my favorite, is to overhaul the whole thing and essentially turn the Galactic Starcruiser into a intergalactic space station, essentially where you would walk between different ships. So let's say that there's like a docking bay, and that's kind of the central hub that looks new and shiny, similar to the promotional things that they're kind of putting out now. Then there would be a section where there's the Millennium Falcon. Maybe you walk through it while it's docked, and maybe that's where there's like the mini droid depot inside where you can build your droid, or even better, build a blaster, which would be super cool. Maybe it's like little like Lego type kind of pieces where they can click into each other. And at the end, you get maybe charged for like the weight of the piece, or you can like get a blaster specific thing. Like maybe you can get Han Solo's blaster, Padme's, maybe like Boba Fett's blaster, maybe Mando's rifle could be a kit option. So that would be like part of the Millennium Falcon. And then maybe attached to the Galactic Space Station is Padme's ship, like her chrome one from the prequel era, back in like the, Jedi World Order type of thing, where you can build your lightsaber and you can talk about the Jedi at their peak, and it's kind of that sort of era. And maybe there's like a map room, like in movie 2, where, they've kind of projected a little hologram of where they are in space and, where they're going to go on their travels and that sort of thing, and how far the Jedi reach. And you can like get a picture in there too. Then there's Organa's flagship vessel, and that can be for dining. Maybe that's where the whole dinner theater experience is. It's kind of the cleaner version of Star Wars that they can kind of keep and make it like a really luxurious experience, because Organa was a princess and she's a general, so her ship would be a little bit nicer, and that would make sense thematically. Also, it would be really cool to have little R2 units operating the elevator with like little bellhop path or something like that, and their little robot arm comes out and turns as it takes your elevator to the appropriate floor. It's not actually functional, but it would just look really adorable. And then you can also have, as a part of the ship, maybe like Jabba's throne cruiser, like a sail ship or whatever. And that can be where the gambling is. Maybe that's where the sabacc table is, and maybe some other things that I'll talk about later, but maybe that's where the kind of gambling, and there's a bar inside of Jabba's hut. And maybe that's where like some lightsaber training is, where you get to maybe reenact the scene where they kill Jabba on Tatooine. Maybe some other little lightsaber things. And like maybe you do this after you do the regular lightsaber training, and you can do it with like your room group or something. And maybe there are like 10 little other pod bays where people are doing it at the same time, so you can kind of cycle everybody through. And then finally, there's an Empire ship that's docked at the station too. So basically, maybe they're doing like an inspection of other ships, and they're looking for the Resistance. And it can be like the smallest of the spaces, being there purely for aesthetic. And maybe you interact with the cast, and they have like a prison block where they can put like an animatronic Wookiee or like some gelatinous monster or something in a cell, or some creatures from the Mandalorian in the prison episode. It doesn't really matter. But maybe there's like patrol droids stationary, and they can kind of just say generic things with the motion sensor, like move along, and I'll put you in here too, or whatever. And you can kind of hear that the Empire is looking for Chewbacca, and maybe they try to recruit you to sell him out or to help them. Just some thoughts, let me know in the comments if you have better ideas. The next part I kind of want to talk about is immersion, which is really important. And I think this Starcruiser and Batuu can take a lesson from Evermore Park. Basically, every season they kind of change their show. Literally every single character has an interaction, a side quest. They want something from you or someone else. And there's kind of a logical character progression for you as you navigate the park. I think that right now, the best part of this Star Wars experience was probably be the cast interactions. I bet they've trained and prepared these cast people very, very hard. But interactions can only get you so far, because like right now on Batuu, the interactions with Vi are always the same. And the ones with the stormtroopers are at least funny, but they're also ultimately the same. And then Kylo comes out, and it's just kind of this painful groundhog loop where he's just always saying the same thing. And it's just, it's not really cast interactions as much as it is like spectral loop over and over again. That doesn't really get you anything. Role playing is all kind of a part of that, and it's really important in a LARP. And I don't know if Disney necessarily understands that. I think that the cast interactions could be improved, and they could really heighten the experience, really lend to better storytelling. With this world, if it's done right, you don't necessarily have to interact with every single person. You can kind of choose your level of interaction, but at least it would be interesting versus the same thing over and over again. I have some ideas for some side quests. Disney, if you want to use them, feel free to ask. I will send you a bill. All right, so maybe, just an idea, there's like a mayoral race happening in Batuu, and there's a tour guide that tells you where some campaign advisors like to hang out. And you go to the first one, and they want you to dig up some dirt on their opponent. And they send you to Ogus to talk to someone who will only tell you if you can convince the ship's mechanic to fix their speeder bike for free. So now you can go find the ship mechanic, and you can roleplay how you will convince them to do it. It's not even something that you have to see. They can just say they'll do it. Now you can get info to the advisor. Or if you want to play differently, you can kind of find the other campaign manager, tell them the opponent is looking for dirt. And choosing not to play dirty has its own rewards, and maybe they give you like a campaign pin to wear around and send you on a side mission to go warn Vi or Chewbacca that the Empire is being sneaky and to watch out. And maybe to earn Vi's trust, you have to like tell her a joke or something, because the Empire has no sense of humor that will make her laugh, and she'll trust you. And then she'll tell you that Rey is coming, and like, here's a code word that you can tell her, and it can be like Porg, things like that can kind of progress you through the story, and your choices can determine how you interact with people. Also, maybe you meet a bounty hunter that is looking for someone, and you need to find them before Boba Fett finds them. And so you're maybe helping this bounty hunter, or you can find Boba and maybe help him. Maybe helping Boba means that you get like a code word at the blaster station, and now you get like a special Mythosaur sticker decal for when you build a blaster. And it kind of shows that you're on Boba's team and not the other person's team. It doesn't have to be too complicated, but just kind of allowing your people to choose their own adventure through their day. as opposed to what I think will happen, which is kind of like a cyberpunk level of illusion of choice. It's going to be heavily railroaded and will basically end in the same place anyways. So having a trail of missions where your choices actually affect the way the game is played, rewards for people participating and paying attention, and maybe at the end you get like a small commemorative pin for helping either the Resistance or the Empire. If you have other ideas, let me know, let Disney know. They need some help. We can help them. Next is food. Now, I kind of debated doing this section at all because the food in itself doesn't seem terrible. I know people are dogging on the blue shrimp, and like, I get it. Blue is not necessarily an appetizing of a color, but themed dining doesn't mean turning something from one color to another color. Hank Pym's food cart and Disney, I forget where, I think it's like on Avengers Campus, has really fun thematic food because it's basically all food that you are aware of and would be familiar, but it's either enlarged or shrunken, kind of like the Ant-Man concept. And it thematically makes sense. And you're getting like a familiar, delicious pretzel, but now it's just really big. It doesn't necessarily need to be alien on this spaceship for it to be plated in a new way using fun and unique flavor combinations, labeling with fun things and giving them kind of fun names, like maybe after planets instead of pretending it's a foreign meat. I couldn't find the picture, but I actually really liked the donut circle dish with the 2 lines. Like it matches the logo on the captain's hat and the plating looks appealing, but the portion does look somewhat small, which is I think also a problem that people are having. On the flip side, bantha steak doesn't really sound as appealing as like Naboo grass-fed filet. I don't know about you, but for me, like having foreign named meats makes me kind of question the legitimacy of the quality. Like, why you gotta call it a Bronto wrap? Is it like, is this hot dog made of snoots and shoots? Like, or is it actually okay to eat? Like, just tell me what the meat actually is. And like all the accoutrements and things like that can kind of have funny names, but just making sure that people know what they're eating, you know, for like dietary restrictions and stuff. It doesn't really matter. It just needs to be like a regular cruise ship where it's all you can eat, all you can drink, and maybe like if they're really going to be stingy about it, everyone gets a 2 alcohol drink ticket per day. And then anything else, you can buy like a drink pass or something like you would on a regular cruise ship. If people want an alien food experience, maybe that is the captain special. Like there could be, you know, like a Mad Hatter type restaurant, like a prefix tasting menu. Maybe there's 7 courses with like more strange options that have like really wild plating that kind of looks alien. And you have to order it in advance and maybe a certain number of days out because the ingredients and plating is more specialized. And maybe they partner with some celebrity chefs to make it more interesting, delicious, unique, that kind of thing. People can take pictures of it and it comes with cocktail or mocktail pairings. Maybe if you order it, the captain comes by and they like greet your table, tell you about how it's all the things they love from their space travels, how excited they are for you to try it. It kind of gives the captain's table experience of the unique food and the role play, offers it to more people than just the 10 at the captain's table, but it isn't behind like another paywall. The next thing, which are my favorite things that I'm very excited to talk about, is the guest experience possibilities. I think they aren't really offering enough. So I'm going to kind of include some different things as a part of this that I think will help make the $6,000 price tag a little bit more worth it. So first is the lightsaber. This should be the first thing that you do, and you should be able to bring it around with you everywhere you want on the ship, no exceptions. They need to be integrated into as much of the experience as you want. Maybe the chairs in the dining hall have those like ballpark type cup holders with the hole in the bottom. And that way each chair can kind of accommodate your lightsaber and you can kind of place it there while you eat. That way it can kind of still just be a part of the experience. As well as for lightsaber training, it looks really dumb. I'm sorry. Like you're basically fighting off a laser pointer. It's really stupid. So I think to improve this, having the Oculus headset for the lightsaber training, you know, there's that workout that you can do with it. It's really cool looking. That actually looks like lightsaber training. And maybe they put it inside of Luke's helmet from the episode 4 where he's doing lightsaber training with the visor down. I think then it would look more like the movies. People would be able to see visually something really, really cool. And to go with the Oculus headset, maybe there's a sensor you can clip over your own personalized lightsaber so that you can use your own in the training. And that way it makes the whole experience more unique and more personalized. And you can kind of put people in like safe space, safe, don't move your feet. You have to keep, you know, stationary so you're not whacking people, and they can have a border line around it, similar to Topgolf, how you have a line you have to stand behind while someone's using it. And essentially at the end for the pictures, you can kind of get your picture in front of like an LED screen or green screen, and you can kind of like pick the background or something. And that way, if you want your picture with the lightsaber, that's where you get it. But the training itself would be a lot cooler and more integrated. The next part is making sure that the ship itself is interactive. This has to be with like motion sensors, or essentially the way that Harry Potter World does this really, really well, where the world interacts with you as you want it to. And so maybe having little motion sensors where, even if it's things of like opening the doors or window to your room with the force, displays behind the food counter or control panels that rattle or spin or do something interesting when you put your hand by it or wave your lightsaber by it, things like that. Even with magnetic pieces, kind of like this, or, something that would kind of float and levitate. It looks really cool. It's not very hard to do. And it's basically something that's so common, general consumers can get it. So that means Disney can definitely get it. Either way, there needs to be much more interactive moments all over the ship. The next part that I think would lend to a better overall experience is exclusive access to the park. In the current itinerary, it says that people will be there from about like 8 a.m. to noon, but that means like general patrons will also be at the park. It's not really exclusive access because they're not going to shut down Batuu for these cruise people to go there. That's just not going to happen. So my thought is that the people on the ship should get early access to the park before check-in and late night after the park closes. You'd be allowed to bring in your lightsabers. You'd be allowed to be in full costume, all that kind of stuff. And at night, the lightsabers would look even cooler in pictures. You'd have the photographers out there getting people with their lightsaber pictures in front of the Millennium Falcon and also other parts of the park. This also would be the best for having interactions, pictures, doing side quests or little mission, because the park is kind of closed to the general public at that time. I think dumping a bunch of Starcruiser patrons into Batuu during the day all at once would have the exact same effect that a regular cruise ship has on port, where they inflate all the wait time to the restaurants, they overwhelm the kitchens and staff, there's terrible overcrowding, and it means that you really only get to do one or two things because the lines will be so long. There's not really time to enjoy your at port session. So I think it should be at night after the park is closed. Maybe they block the exits to the rest of the park so that people don't actually wander around. They just stay in Batuu. And that way they also don't have to staff the whole park. This way it's truly exclusive to the members of the ship. And the immersion won't break as everyone will still remain in costume and they'll get to continue role playing throughout their time. The next part, a little controversial. My husband disagreed, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I think they should really consider adding a pool. People will be trapped inside with no actual windows for a few days. And I think that the trips to Batuu, if they are optional during the day, will elect to stay on the boat. I know I would. I think a futuristic looking pool, maybe with hologrammed sunlight, and they just pretend like it's hologram sunlight when it truly is outside. And they can basically break the sight lines with plants and that kind of thing, make sure that people from the rest of the park can't see in and vice versa. Essentially, they could have it kind of themed like a Naboo type of situation, Italian inspired. Maybe they have, the iconic blue rooftops, pretty waterfalls, mosaic work. The whole thing could be even enclosed in like a glass dome, and they could have some vents to help, get rid of the chlorine smell. Maybe it has like a small pool, kind of like regular cruise ships do. But this one has maybe like a gun swim up bar and some fun ocean inspired cocktails and a small like tapas menu. This can basically be like a regular cruise ship pool. There can be a cast member dressed up as a mermaid in the shade. Mermaids do exist in Star Wars, but they're called something different. I don't remember what it is. But they can just kind of have a pool area where people can actually get sunlight. And what is a cruise ship without your soft serve on tap? This is where the soft serve would be, out by the pool. I think it would be a ton of fun. But they may not elect to have a pool. Star Wars isn't really like pool-esque. The only time we really see characters in water is on Naboo anyways. So, just throwing that out there. Oh, okay. The bridge. The thing for hyperspace is fine. It's really just a large screen that plays an already made clip of a light streak when you pull a lever. I doubt any of the buttons on this, frankly, Spirit Halloween quality control panel does anything but blink and beep. What I think it could be improved by is having basically a small captain simulation. It's kind of similar to like Smuggler's Run, where maybe there are 2 or 3 rooms. It's like your table group for a cruise ship or a part of it, and they get assigned a time for the bridge simulation. They can kind of cycle everyone through. And there's a member of the crew over there to like help you if you need it over the comms or whatever. This would essentially be set up like an escape room, and you can have the group assign roles like a captain, an engineer, navigation, translation, maybe translation because your protocol droid is broken and that's part of the thing that you have to fix. Each part of the puzzle would be designed for like the person who's kind of in charge of engineering, but also for the group to kind of help be a part of. Maybe the goal is that you have to find the part to plug into the ship to get to hyperspace. So through various clues, interaction with the bridge, maybe a few cast members, and you kind of working together to solve the room by fixing the cockpit. And for the finale, you all pull the lever and send the Falcon into hyperspace, before the Empire gets you. And I think having a bridge simulation that's framed more like an escape room will be a lot more interesting than just pushing a bunch of useless buttons and pulling a lever that goes into hyperspace. It's going to create a more memorable experience for your family than kind of playing Gattaca on a big screen. The next thing is the sabacc table. It's table because there is only one and it fits like maybe 5 people. So they definitely need to improve this. They need to make the gambling area look more like Jabba's cruiser, like I had said before, or kind of framing it like Canto Bight. And I know that people were kind of torn on that. It's definitely framed like it's the bad guys. But honestly, like the futurism Gatsby-esque world is so much more interesting than the current situation in this really tiny bar. They need to fix it by adding at least 3 more sabacc tables, adding some blackjack tables. Even on Canto Bight, there was some roulette and craps. And so kind of making some stylized things like that. You could even have like a horse track where you bet on droid races. Maybe there are several droids that kind of race along a track and either you can control the droids or maybe it's just random and it's a computer doing it or the cast doing it. It doesn't really matter. But it'd be fun to watch and to play if you can like control the droids or kind of watch that. And it would be a more interactive like gambling area than just one sabacc table, especially because in the itinerary as a part of it, like a 30-minute sabacc lesson, but then there's only one table. So how are people really supposed to play? And it says there's a tournament. How are you supposed to have a tournament on one table? It doesn't make any sense and it's not going to happen very smoothly. The rooms, I put them in quotation marks because it's ridiculous. First, the current bridge game should be taken out of the bridge and put into the rooms on the like space window. People can decide to like train for managing the cabins. Woo, accent. Okay. Train to managing the cannons, and it starts the game, and it would be played on the window of the room, and maybe it goes kind of like Nazi zombies where it's getting progressively harder until you die. So for the rooms themselves, I see that there are different grades of rooms, but I think the base room itself should be the size of a regular hotel suite. Not necessarily the Four Seasons, but at least a suite from the Marriott. And that right now is being the Galaxy class suite where there's like a little sofa and that kind of thing. I think that should be the standard room for the price that you're paying. I think these smaller rooms, if they're really going to be that much smaller, they need to have a significant price decrease. Now, the bunk beds don't necessarily need to be in every room. I actually kind of like the bunk beds. I think 13-year-old Holly would have absolutely loved them. And I see how it's really fun for kids. They're adorable and they are out of the way. Kids aren't going to lose their sneakers under them. And if one kid is like bouncing on the top, it's not necessarily going to break and crash down into the other. So I think these are actually really cool bunk bed alternatives, but I don't think that every room necessarily needs to have them. You need to offer more options for like double queen rooms, couch converter beds, Murphy beds, those kind of things, beds that adults can actually fit in. Because as of right now, even though the bunk beds say they can fit adults, I really don't think that they can. Also in the rooms, I think there should be a place where you can mount your saber on the wall. Maybe you can store it there during the day, use it as a nightlight, whatever. If you want to walk around with just the hilt, then you know that the blade is kept safe in your room. Plus, I think the rooms need to include a place where you can like park and charge your droid that you've made. I also think the rooms need more theming. The rooms are fine, but they just don't look finished. Everything looks like it just needs a little bit more. And since this is a cruise experience for a cruise price, this cruise doesn't go anywhere. So you need to increase the minimum of the stay really to 3 nights, and making the rooms more comfortable will help accommodate that. Disney's saying they wanted to keep the rooms small so people wouldn't be using the rooms anyway because they'll be out interacting. They have clearly never had children with a nap time, because families really need a space where they can take a screaming toddler, put them back to the room, let them take a nap, maybe decompress as a family. Having a nice room is really going to make that $6,000 price tag really feel worth it. But instead, I think Disney probably just didn't build the building big enough. And so they're just trying to cram a bunch of really small rooms into this space. And they're just claiming that it's because they want to help immersion. And I just don't think that's the truth. Finally, my new and improved itinerary. I realized that a lot of people work really hard on this, but honestly, the activities that they have planned are only 15 to 30 minutes. And on the first day, there's a 2-hour window between arrival and the initial activity, which is light refreshments. There's a 30-minute sabacc lesson, which is, I guess, for every single person to attend, which is insane considering there's only one table. In the concept art, it can only hold 4 people at a time. So the entire morning of the second day currently is relegated to Batu, but it won't be an exclusive experience as they claim. Back to what I said before, they're really not going to shut down the park for these ship people to have it for the entire morning. That's just not going to happen. And then on the third day, you literally leave right after your hour-long breakfast. And that's it. That's the third day. So I understand that you need to have a check-in time in the afternoon set later so that you have a chance for turnover and to clean the rooms, clean the ship, reset everything, fix the trouble spot areas. So I understand why you'd want to have a later check-in date and a early checkout date. But because of that, I think I want to increase it to a 3-night journey. So from the pictures in the dining room, it looks like the room is essentially a mirror, like 72 on one side, but that's including the captain's table. So I imagine the ship is only really going to be able to hold in that dining space about 140 people. And it said that you can pick between 2 dinner groups, which really means this hotel could have as many as maybe 280 people on this cruise at a time. And that seems really small for an actual cruise ship, but with how few attractions there are and the really small timelines and like time slots they have for activities, I think this could be tricky. So in my 3-day itinerary, I really want to space things out, stretch things out, allow people to kind of breathe in that moment. They're going to not have to worry about breaking their role play because, like, well, I only have 30 minutes to go ride Smuggler's Run. And so even though I really want to go on a side quest, I'm not going to get a chance to do that anytime. So I'll just go run, go jump on this ride really quick, and I'll just miss out on this role playing opportunity. So day 1, keeping with the 1 p.m. arrival, it's arriving and exploring. Orientation is done in the rooms by hologram. And it's maybe like on the TV, and is also the muster drill. We're not breaking that into separate things. Just get it out of the way really quickly. And maybe afterwards, the sabacc lessons are right after orientation. So if people want to learn how to play, they can watch it right after the orientation, or they can watch it in their room later. They don't necessarily have to attend the specific class. So right off the bat, so starting out, having the first group of lightsaber builds, having the first group of bridge training, and having this first group of droid building, getting those, or like blaster building or whatever. So kind of getting that through. And so people can start experiencing with those really cool gadgets right off the bat. The light refreshments, that's kind of that first thing of being able to interact with the cast, to begin missions and side quests, making sure that people feel comfortable, like now is the time to start, as opposed to later it's saying, event happening at like around dinner time. I don't think that should be truly the start of things. The 4:30 captain's reception and then dinner starting at 5:30. And that's like the first dinner theater show. This kind of sets up the context for the LARP, gives people some fun background for the cast and the characters, kind of what's going to go on, maybe setting up that political intrigue. Oh, the Empire just docked. They're looking for people. Will you choose to help them? But saying it less expositionally. So the next thing is at like 7, it says Outer Rim Regalia. Get your stuff and prep for Galaxy's Edge. So that's kind of what I would do is after dinner, people can kind of get ready for their trip out to Galaxy's Edge, where it is closed 8 p.m. whenever the park closes. Now you can begin deboarding the cruiser, letting people into Batu. And this is the actual exclusive experience in the park, where the Starcruisers can be in like full costume, have their lightsabers, go to the restaurants again if they want to get maybe dessert or some more cocktails, go to the stores if they want to. And every time they depart, they get a guaranteed ride on Rise of the Resistance and Smuggler's Run every single departure night. And then maybe at like 11 p.m., people have to go back to the cruiser, and that's the end of the activities for the night. Now, for day 2, I think a fully contrived itinerary only makes people feel rushed. And like I said before, it kind of takes away from the experience if you're thinking, okay, I have to go do a lightsaber at 1, and I have to go do this at 2, so I guess we don't have time to do this other thing because then we'll be late. And it's $6,000, so I have to make sure that I cram as many things into it as possible. So like obviously have structure where it's due, like scheduling when you do like your lightsaber builds, scheduling when you do your bridge training, the meal times, they have windows. I understand that. But allowing people to just live in the world and have role play conversations that feel more organic. If you're not worried that you have to get into this, you might miss the sabacc tournament, helping people be able to breathe in the world. And cocktails at the Sublight Lounge should be available anytime. It should not be a time slot, especially because the bar looks so small. So if everyone floods the tiny bar at once when it's scheduled, then it's going to have the same problems that I said before, where the staff will get overwhelmed, the wait times will go up, and this experience itself will suffer. So my kind of loose thoughts for the second day are, you open with breakfast, and then immediately the build times and the time slots that people have open up, people can get into them, and you get into more role play. The next groups kind of cycle through the day. The second day, the current itinerary only gives 30 minutes for each ride on your excursion to Batu. I don't really understand how that's possible, but the second day morning time for going to the park should be optional. People should be allowed to stay on the cruiser if they want to, go out to the pool, go out, to the different ships, do other things that they want to. Lunch and dining can be on the ship, or it can be at Oga's, whatever people want to do. And then by this time, I think it would be important to open up lightsaber training for those that have already made their saber and are kind of cycling through it. And once everyone's kind of done it once, then you open it up for second time slots if people want to beat their score or they want to just try it again, and kind of opening it up to first come, first serve for signing up for time slots to do the certain activities again. I'm not necessarily saying that people will build a lightsaber again, but doing the training again would be really cool for people that want to get multiple repetitions to it. So in between me filming this, I noticed that on the itinerary, there actually is a droid racing time slot. So I have to give credit where it's due. It's a genius idea. Having droid racing sounds like a blast. I think it should be offered more than just once, but that's just me. Maybe having it as a part of the gambling racetrack thing where you can bring your droid and race it against your siblings. That sounds like fun to me. I also saw on the itinerary that there's a model ship building, which is also a fine idea, as long as you can build ships other than the Starcruiser, which I doubt they will. It'll probably be the Helcion, and that's the only one they offer. But it would be really cool if they had models of other iconic ships, like the Slave One, the Death Star, the Millennium Falcon, of course. I think would be really cool. I think the sabacc tournament can't happen at one table at the 4 o'clock time slot that it's saying. It's going to take way longer than an hour they've allotted for, especially if they only have one table. Then the second night, the dinner theater can continue, maybe with a progression on where the campaign is going. You can get the audience to cheer for who they're supporting, and maybe the theater and like story moments can happen. And then after the park closes again, they open it back up to the Starcruiser folks for another exclusive night. They get to ride Rise of the Resistance and Smuggler's Run again if they want to. They've paid for it. They deserve to go again if they want. And they can go in their full regalia, pictures, costumes, shopping, whatever, exclusive access to the park until 11 p.m. And then you're done for the night. By day 3, this is really where the role play from the previous days really comes to a head, and people are free to do any of the activities like lightsaber training, the casino, the bridge training again if they like maybe couldn't escape the first time and they want to just try it again. Essentially, give another option for the outing to Batu during the day, as the people will have been inside for a few days and might want some sunlight and some fresh air, but making sure that it's optional for people if they do or do not want to go. The meals are maybe less dinner theater and more of the actors going around and seeing where the participants sit on the side of the campaign, if they're helping the First Order, and maybe the cast can kind of alert each other saying like, oh, well, table 57 is pro-resistance, so you go over and talk to them, or these people are pro Empire. So, Empire Colonel, you go talk to them and you go, pump them up. Either way, so to like make it a more personalized experience for every table. After, dinner, that's when like the fancy gala kind of takes place. And then the spectacular finale that it claims to have happens after dinner. And you feel like by the end of day 3, it's been a really full time. Everything comes to a really nice, satisfying conclusion. And then the 4th day is breakfast and then check out, just like before. Let's be real. Most people will want to go and put their pictures on social media in some capacity, from influencers to Karens who think they're influencers, giving people an opportunity to take pictures where they can. But, if the LARP is high quality, people won't necessarily be on their phones the whole time. Like, they'll be living it. And that's the sign of a successful LARP. I understand there's a lot of really talented people working on the Galactic Starcruiser. At the beginning, it might be a little rough as characters kind of settle into their rhythm, into the scripts, the story threads, may get cut or tweaked to hopefully be better for guest experience. And as new stories get introduced and the ability to play it for different outcomes. Hi. Hi. Even if it loses money in the beginning, the word will get out and FOMO will hit so hard that people will be lining up to go, and it'll start being profitable. Instead of that, I think the opposite is happening. That's where those that can't afford are just going to go at the start before they start to cut things until no one comes.